As soon as they took him out for that month, they had to hire 4 freelancers to replace him. And their overall costs went up. So now my dad was too old to collect data about himself, but he could say, he would go back a month later and say, how's business been this month? All right. Do you need me now? Right. I'll start on Monday.
This is the Fearless Pricing Podcast, where we meet and talk about real-life pricing experience. I'm your host, Filip Fucic.
Hello and welcome back to the Fearless Pricing Podcast. Today, I have a guest from London, and I wanted to introduce Faris Aranki. Most people can't really say they're really happy with their pricing. He is. So you must think, right, oh, this guy has it all figured out. Well, he also has a what I should have charged story. That's what I wanted you to hear today. Faris, could you introduce yourself?
Yes, definitely, Philip. Thank you for inviting me on the Fearless Pricing Podcast. So I'm Faris Aranki. I am here in London, and I am the founder and CEO of a company called Shiageto Consulting. Now, Shiageto is the Japanese word for a sharpening stone, because me and my company, we help sharpen other businesses. We do that by bringing emotional intelligence to strategy, because too often people just focus on coming up with the idea or the strategy. They don't think about actually rolling it out and getting others to buy into it. And that can be the critical difference between success and failure. So we work with big companies, the likes of Amazon, Heineken, but we also work with lots of startups. And so we enjoy it working around the world to make people more effective.
So, like I said, you had a really interesting what I should have charged story. So please, let's move to that.
Let's dive into the story. Just to set the context, I've been running this company for 4 years. I've worked in big companies, done a lot of deals and a lot of pricing. But even, when you can always start again, don't you, Philip, when you start your own business, you have to learn where the market's at, where you can price yourself, because you don't, you've moved on, you don't necessarily have the brand behind you of your previous company. So it took me a while to establish that. And as you say, I got pretty good at working out the price for things. And as I was saying to you in our pre-chat, always price on value, not time, wherever possible. But the particular story I want to talk about is with an established client. Now, I had reached a point in the size of my company and the performance that I began to use contractors to deliver some of my work. And a lot of my contractors are friends of mine and acquaintances that I've worked with previously. Now, I had a specific situation the first time where I had a clash where the client was paying some services from me, but unfortunately I couldn't make the specific dates that they needed. So that's where I was looking to bring in one of my contractors, one of my associates, to deliver the work. Now, as you can imagine, you present somebody new to a client. They say, well, hang on a minute, they're not as good as you. We don't want to do the same price. So you've got to start your negotiations on the price again. And you are obviously, usually the direction at that point is going downwards because you're offering somebody that they see as inferior. So we had that whole round, but that's not the point of the story. So I agreed a price. I was happy. I agreed a price. I have somebody cover me. But what I hadn't thought about was the whole end-to-end pricing, i.e. the amount I was going to agree with my friend, the associate, to deliver the work. And so having gone from a moment of euphoria to secured new piece of work with existing clients, so they're happy, I then got into pricing discussions with my friend. And wow, that was a lot tougher than I expected. He was adamant he couldn't go below a certain price. But got me, he knew that I was between a rock and a hard place because I'd sold his services and I had guaranteed delivery work and with him. So he held me over a barrel, although we're friends and I didn't want to jeopardize the relationship, to a price that meant my margins on that project were negligible, if at all, profitable. So, I fundamentally had no choice but to accept, and ended up giving him the work to deliver, which, was at next to nothing for me. And again, so on the balance of things, Philip, I said, that's all good and well. However, there was a future problem that I didn't anticipate. I had now set a price with him that he was using as a benchmark for future work. And on the other side, he delivered an excellent piece of work, which I knew he would. So the client came back to me saying, we want him more often. And I was like, in my head, this is terrible because every time I use him, I'll be making very minimal profit compared to when they were using me and the other services. And so that's created a very difficult position around pricing and delivering your services. So there you go. I'll pause there, Philip. That's an interesting challenge where you think you're doing the right thing. You haven't thought through the whole pricing strategy, and then it leads to a long-term problem for you.
Yes, absolutely. And Thank you. It's very interesting and also happens every day. So I recently had people or as guests who, ate into their own margin really quickly because it was one of these rock and a hard place situations, right? Where one side knows that they have you over a barrel, and then there's nothing you can do but, shrug. And I think the most painful thing is the continuation, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, I took a hit. Oh, I'm going to keep taking hits on this because
Yeah.
of course, you can't say to the client who was suspicious of this. Now he's not suspicious anymore. You can't say, oh yeah, no more that, right?
Yeah.
You
Of course.
need to keep the client happy, and then you needing it. So the only need that is unmet here is you took the risk and you're not getting anything out of it, right? Because profits are not what we get for working. Profits is what we get risking. So you didn't do any work here, but you did all of the risking here. The client actually reduced his risk, reducing the price. Your subcontractor actually reduced the risk. He just got the job. You did all of the work on that and risked him not being what the client wants and taking the fault for that, right? So all the risk was yours and you got nothing, right? So that's the core of the issue here. And that, so any kind of deal that has a long time frame, potentially has a long, is usually much riskier. So it's much riskier to play with that, especially with the margins, because of this.
Yeah.
Because if it was a one-shot deal, okay. But that's how did you solve it? How did you solve it in that instance or the next one? But that doesn't really matter. What did you do?
Okay. So let's talk about that. And you hit the nail on the head. There's two things. There's that particular ongoing situation. So how do I deal with that? Well, we'll come back to it. But what I learned for the future was have an end-to-end, have an agreed price with all my contractors ahead of schedule so that I am having the final conversation really with the client and that I can flex around that rather having to go back, as you say, and being over a barrel, having sold somebody's services and then having to, be negotiating with them. So it's very clear now I have in new arrangements, I have with new contractors where I set out the position of the pricing and, it puts me more on the front foot. And so I've learned on this. And also with new clients, you make it, or with clients, you position it so that it's only ever a one-off trial. So you don't open up the possibility wherever possible of this long-term deal that is going to return to haunt you almost. There's a lot of lessons to put aside for the future. And you almost say, we only really learn from our mistakes. We only change our behavior. That's a big part of how I make senior executives change their behaviors. So well done. I took a taste of my own medicine. I can see you smiling and nodding.
Keep repeating that on the show. The only reason why I can talk about prices is because I have made all the mistakes first.
Exactly.
So
I
haven't found a guest yet had something that I couldn't parry with my own blunder. But thank you. And do continue. How did you solve that particular case?
The ongoing case, and so that's much more interesting. It's interesting to use the word solve. The word solve can mean many things, but in terms of that situation, that process is now set in stone. Okay. And actually, when I looked at it, there wasn't much I was going to be able to do on the profits or the pricing for the time being. Maybe further down the line, when a period of time has passed, we can renegotiate either. But what I could change, and which was interesting, was reframing it in my own head from a strategic point of view. So initially, the first few times it happened, I was actually angry, sad that I was making less margin because I saw it as an opportunity cost. I could be in there delivering that work for a higher margin. And this wasn't healthy for my mindset, the relationship with the client and the relationship with my friend/contractor. So I needed to reframe it to actually, this is an opportunity. That time that I would otherwise be delivering, and yes, I'm only getting a small bit of margin on that piece. If I can get other work at the same time, then I am actually leveraging having this contractor and it is of benefit to me. So I actively went out to win projects on the same days as that contractor was delivering, which would give me peace of mind that actually I was making a bonus.
Before we continue, I'd like to suggest two things. Firstly, if this is the first time you're tuning in, I'd love for you to subscribe and hear the next story in a week. And second, if you feel you could do with a little more fearless pricing content, look in the show notes for the link to the popular, short, and sometimes funny bi-weekly newsletter. That's it. Let's get back to the show.
This was, turning it around from my head from I'm losing money here from what I could have gained to actually by having him on board is a benefit. And that is much healthier for all those dynamics. And it's just a changing of how you view something, which is incredibly powerful. You understand. So yeah, that was really fascinating, but I'm a human being. So it's that emotional journey. Yeah. The first few times I was bitter and a little bit sad about it to actually, this is a great thing, right? Let's lean into that positive side of things because that will deliver way more benefits.
Well, it's a way of solving it. I mean,
yeah, I guess
when I had my first company go under after 3 years, so that was 15 years ago. It was the liquidity crisis. It went under, and I was very much stuck in the entrepreneur's mindset. I got the job, but working for somebody else, and they never asked me to think like anything else than an employee, but I did because it's me. And I came home and I thought about the job, and there was no sense in doing that. Nobody was paying me to do this. Nobody expected this. I was just, burning myself out for no reason. So what I started doing, I started wearing suits. We had to wear suits, but only when we went to the client. I started using them every day. Why?
Yeah.
Because it's a uniform.
Yeah.
And then when I came home and took off the uniform, I took off the job. And until I put it back on, I didn't think about the job anymore. So is that solving it? Yes. Yes, it is. I think you solved your own problem by challenging yourself to book those same hours and have a premium rather than have an opportunity cost. I love it. It's a psychological thing and it's good enough.
Yes. Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. When it comes to margins, that's an interesting topic. In your business, you're all about margins. When I'm thinking about margins to expertise, I think, so margins are basically what you get greater, where the price is greater than the cost. So you have cost and you have price.
Yeah.
That's the margin. What I'm finding interesting to focus on is difference between the value and the price. So not cost and the price, but price and the value applying.
Okay.
Because margins are the really key thing when you're selling. When you're selling things that have a direct cost, like people or other things. However, that can only tell you if it's a good idea to sell something.
Yeah.
But not if it's a good idea to buy it for the client. So if I focus on the difference between, as you said, you usually price things in value. If I focus on the difference between the value that they achieve and the price that they pay, it's the so-called the buyer's surplus, right?
Yeah.
In economics. If that's sorted, the cost part, the margin part is inconsequential. It's going to be solved, right? If that part is not solved, it doesn't really matter that your cost to price is very high. So you have a really good margin. Nobody buys this because the price is too close to the value that they can see. And now nobody's buying this. So for solopreneurs, I found that the difference from the client's value to the price is more difficult to achieve, but also more important than the actual margin. And then the margin can be whatever you want it to be.
Yeah.
Or it can be thin, but if the upper part is high, then it's easy to sell. And then you don't really care because you have a lot of small margins, that also works, right?
Yeah.
That's the part that I like to.
Yeah.
Uh,
That part is the fascinating part, that value, that the buyer's benefit, as you call it. And what's very interesting in your world, Philip, often the value, and it depends what you mean by the buyer, often the value can be more to the receiver of your services than the buyer of your services. And
Okay.
so then you need to negotiate. So let me bring that to life for you. So particularly on the training side, let's say, of my business. So we do facilitation and we do training. On the training side, often the buyer is someone who sat in an HR department or an L&D department. And they're focused on, look, I just need to do a day's training for these people. Let's get it at a cost. The real value is the people who attend the training and what they have, what they will do with the knowledge that they learn and so there's that real dichotomy. And so as somebody who works in that services space, having to educate your clients on the value that you bring and make the person who is more sort of on the admin side actually care about that is part of the fun. Is how do you really bring that home?
Okay. So when you say that you usually price on value, which value are you talking about? Value to the people who are going to learn, or value to the people who are going to approve the cost?
I try and price it to the value people are going to learn, right? Make them the buyers.
Right.
Make them the buyers and make the person in the HR department just the admin, just the operations to process the contract and the invoice. So it's changing the focus of who you're courting, who you're wooing,
Yeah.
So, but that's something that every, not just small business needs to learn sometimes. And they often direct their sales focus on the wrong area.
For sure. But how do you make the administrator care? Because if they don't care, the only thing that they look for is, brownie points with the finance boss. So, I got this 21% cheaper than last year. Good work. Right?
Yeah.
That's the only thing so how do you make them care?
Well, you make them care. There's several levers, how to influence. One is obviously, if the buyer has more gravitas, importance, or thing, they can apply pressure, saying, look, this is what I want, just make it happen. Okay. And that can sweep past a lot of the sort of bureaucracy and that sort of aspect. The other side, though, is far more powerful because I always think using positional power only gets you so far and actually does not engender a long-term effective relationship. The other side of the coin is getting them bought into the value. All right. So I work on that side of the business, I work with those admin people to not necessarily show them the value, but show them the excitement that is delivered from that value. So what does that mean in the HR sense of the word? With one of my clients, one of the courses that I deliver for them is the most popular course now in their company. There is a waiting list of multiple years to join this course. Now that, transferring, so forget about even the power that people who go on the course get. That excitement and cachet of someone being in the L&D team or the HR team going, wow, I'm part of this course now. Right? I see the buzz. I see the excitement, right? Has allowed me to raise the price, quite simply, closer towards the value, without them being really aware of the value. They just see the excitement, the hype, and they want to be part of that, right? So that's what I mean. Bring them closer into the vision and the engagement and the excitement. And it doesn't always have to mean showing them the full value. Now, we do that as well, right? On learning and development, one of the hardest things to show value, right? Because everyone goes to a course, great, right? They just enjoy the sandwiches and the thing, and they're back at the office. How can you demonstrate a discernible difference? Now, where I've moved to, I've worked in this space on that area, and I'm all about, moving the dial on strategy. We don't ask participants whether they enjoyed a course. Everyone enjoys a course. Everyone enjoys a day out of the office, generally, right? And I'm sweeping. We go and ask their bosses. Yeah, exactly. We go and ask their bosses 3 months later, 6 months later, have they seen a discernible difference in that person's performance? Yes, it won't all be attributable to the learning and development they've done, but we have put a point of reference and we make it clear we will be coming to them 6 months later. So please be monitoring. And that generally from the training that we deliver, we always see sort of a 90%. Yeah. I don't know what happened around that time, but there has been a general uplift in their performance, right? And that is beginning to show the value. Well, you got to, I've been on the other side as a buyer. You can just see training as a waste of time. So you need to start making it demonstrable and getting that excitement through a variety of levers.
Yes. I mean, of course, how do you bottle that lightning? So because you obviously have success stories and as you say, as clients, they can think that, trading is just sandwiches with some talking. So, but it's basically on us, the expert, to move them. They're not going to move by themselves. Why should they? That's all that they see. And there's no way that then they can see anything but that if we don't show them. So we have to actively go and speak their language.
Yeah.
So I'm simply curious if you can share, how do you, so people, users who you and okay, so asking the boss 6 months down the line is a really good thing. And then you have his state that you use that, or how do you do that?
Yeah. If you survey bosses and you can keep the data of how many, you just can regularly refer to that data. And do you know what? I've been sat in meetings with CFOs who've looked at the cost of the training that we deliver compared to other training, and have gone, hang on a minute, this one is disproportionately, magnitude of 10 times more than we're spending on other training courses. This doesn't seem right. To bring in that evidence, say that 95% of your managers say, when I send one of my team on this course, I get a different person back. That is a very powerful conversation that, it doesn't work 100% of the time, but basically just closes down that conversation. Okay.
There's nothing to say.
There's nothing to say. And the CFO always goes, well, it almost causes problems for other training programs now. He's like, I expect this level of measurement, but no, I apologize to other training providers out there. But, that what works for us, because I do appreciate not the cheapest, but I'm unashamedly about that, right? Because we're delivering that value.
The cheapest, there's a reason why the ability to compare things on price is not actually to the client's benefit. So very, because it seems like, okay, so there's training A and training B. People get trained in things, right? Training A is 10K, training B is 20K. Why? Training is training. No.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely not. Right. So this is the problem with how we view buying services in general, because there's commoditized services and it doesn't really matter who does them. I mean, we're talking about professional level and above. So I don't really care who washes my car. And if they switch mid-wash, if both people are professional, I really don't care. I won't notice. I notice that the car is clean, just like that last time. And, so how much is a car wash? That's a good question. This one and that one, both are professional. This is this much, this is that much. Now you can compare, right?
Yeah.
It's like different pieces of candy. Okay. Both is sweet. Both goes both go into the same hole. Both feel satisfying. One is more chocolate. The other one is more caramel. This one is more expensive because it's Swiss. Right. Okay, fine. We can measure the amount of sugar or the amount of grams and say, oh, per gram, these lollipops are more expensive than this. Fine. And there's services like that, commoditized services. What you're selling, what most of the people listening to this are selling, is not like that. It's more like medicine. So most people don't need it. People who do need it, they need it. And they need the right thing. They don't need a purple pill. They need an antidepressant, right? And if somebody says, well, there's some purple pills and some other purple pills, but these pills are way cheaper. Who cares?
Yeah,
exactly. A pill is not a pill, right? So they look very similar, candy and pills. They do it, they jingle both, and they're small and they grow into the same orifice. However, there's a really big difference. And while it does make sense for a finance guy to say, oh, we're paying for this purple candy more than for that purple candy. Why is that? It makes absolutely no sense to ask the same question for training, because that's like saying, these laxatives are way cheaper than this Viagra.
Yeah.
Both are blue. So,
Yeah. It's
uh,
not.
so
Yeah.
the ability to compare those does not make it a good idea to compare it. Right?
Yeah. You should.
So
Yeah.
that is something that I really like about the example that you gave, because when you have stats, you do, then you can shut down the conversation. You can show, yes, right? These are something else.
Yeah.
These are not candy. These are medicine.
Yeah.
Medicine is per gram way more expensive than any kind of candy. And there's a really good reason for this, because medicine is not just complicated candy. You can make candy really complicated. It's still going to be candy. It's still going to do the same job as really simple candy, just with, more gold dust on it.
Yeah.
You cannot say that for medicine. It's just not just about the complexity. It's a whole other thing. And most clients are not really capable of doing the comparison, even if they really think they are.
No,
and showing this, right? Showing this difference is exactly what enables you to charge 10 times more.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. Right. And what I'd recommend to all the people out there is collect your own data, make sure they're comfortable with it. You can't spring up something that they don't recognize or trust. And often there's also the flip side, absence of you. All right. So let me tell you a quick story, and I learned a lot of this secondhand from my father, who was a freelancer for the last 25 years of his career for a radio station, a famous radio station. He would read the news and he would produce and broadcast, but he was a freelancer. And every year he would have what we would call his 1 month off, because the same thing would happen every year. The head of finance would look across the cost line and say, this guy is the most expensive guy in our unit, right? You need to make him bring his fee down. And he was more expensive than the other freelancers. And my dad would say, no. So the CFO would say, right, we're not using you. And during the course of that month, their overall cost would go up, because what they didn't appreciate was my dad was able to cover 4 different roles in one shift because he was that experienced. So as soon as they took him out for that month, they had to hire 4 freelancers to replace him, and their overall costs went up. So now my dad was too old to collect data about himself, but he would go back a month later and say, how's business been this month? All right. Do you need me now? Right. I'll start on Monday. And it would happen every year because the guy would forget. We're talking about my dad's month off, his monthly yearly sabbatical, and it just surprised me that they didn't get better at either pricing or their side was very naive each year, but it really
impressive memory hole right there on the account of the client. That's so having it happen twice. Okay. But regularly, that's impressive.
Maybe they thought, here's an old guy, as he gets older, he'll loosen up, but they didn't count on how stubborn / my dad was.
I love that. I absolutely love it. It's a really good example of that. Thank you for this. So how do you approach collecting the data? Is it something that is like a part of the contract? So the post data, right? The data, because people are busy. And once you haven't shown is there for 6 months, they're basically forget that you exist, and your email can sit there. So is it the contractual? Again, if you can share it, how do you get them to spill the data?
So actually, some of it is, here's a tip. Some of it can increase your attractiveness. If say you are competing against others, you saying, do you know what? Hold us accountable by collecting this data. We will collect this data. And in fact, if you're confident in yourself, say, look, we're willing to reduce our fees by 20%, 30%, whatever, if this data turns out to show that we haven't made an impact. So, and that makes you more attractive. They say, oh, okay, they're willing to put some risk in and thing. And then you could transfer that to them, right? I always try and bake it. I don't want to have to add more to my process. I don't want to have to go and contact Plus, invariably, these are people who won't know me. I'll have a foreign email address. They'll look at it. So you actually transfer that task over to that same HR admin team to say, well, look, are you surveying anyway? Yeah. If not, if you are, here's a couple of questions. If not, could you just email these people at the end of the month? And they get very good at it initially because, particularly if you put risk into the contract, they want to prove you wrong or they want to bring the price down. So they're very keen to collect that data on your behalf. And often the first few times they get surprised when the data comes back positively and they say, oh, actually, you were as good as you said you were. And then it becomes almost like they want to collect that data as a benchmark and create over time and see which teams is having more of an impact. So actually, you might require a bit of work on your part to start with, but you can very easily transfer that process over to the client.
Love that. Has it backfired ever?
It has backfired in as much as some people just naturally take more from your training than others. And also certain personality types. So it has backfired in as much as when you set a high benchmark, if you find a pocket within the company that isn't as high, I've had being rung up saying, well, hang on a minute, it's not working so well for the IT team. Why is that? Did you do a poor job here? And yeah, it may have been that we had a bad day or a bad training, but invariably it's also a bit about the personality of the people who turn up, because some people just turn up for training because they're told to by their boss, and or their personality type isn't anything. So it has occasionally backfired where we've been asked serious questions, but those are we welcome those questions because actually that can lead to other discussions.
Cool. Thank you very much. We've had a really nice round discussion from the value and at the beginning to your dad's amazing story. I really love it. I really love that. I think I'll going to quote him if you mind. I think that's a really smart way to show, not tell, right? So it's one thing if you just say to somebody, yeah, you'll come back. Maybe no, it just okay. How's business? How's business? So thank you very much. Where can people find you?
And yeah, well, I'd love to carry on the conversation, tell more stories about my dad. I do use him a lot as reference because he is. But come and find me. Come and check out my company website. It's shiageto.com. I'm sure we'll put the link to that. Or come and find me on LinkedIn. I spend a disproportionately large amount of time there. And there's only one Faris Aranki. So come and look me up. And I look forward to telling you some more of my stories.
Very cool. Thank you very much. And people, this was the Fearless Pricing Podcast. See you next time.
Thanks for listening. If you would like to hear more, simply subscribe. Until next time, your host, Filip Vojic.